Chapter 2571. Chunjiao, I have some scattered shares, Risfar said. They're worth more than 500 million. Risfar, you don't have enough money? I think they don't have enough. If they don't want it, I can buy it for them. Rasfa wasn't familiar with Risfar. He'd only met him a few times through Chunjiao. They didn't have any interactions in private, so at this moment, he didn't give them any face at all. I don't need your kindness. Which eye of yours thinks I don't have enough money? Chun, I need a few days, Rasfa said. How about I provide a plan? Chunjiao asked. Tell me the price you want, and then get a loan from me. Tell me your price and get a loan from me. The interest will be the bank's lowest interest rate. Of course, even if you're short on money, I won't force you. After all, we're still friends. If anyone can't get it, I can give you a year. If you still can't repay the loan after a year, then you can use your assets to pay me back. This is our agreement and my promise, Chunjiao said. Chun, are you sure you want to lend us money? Rasfa asked, looking at Chunjiao. Do you know how much I need? You just got a sum of money, Amira said. $10 billion. Everyone gasped. Dell looked at Chunjiao. Chun, what did you do this time? Did you sell the brewery? He sold 300 tons of gold to the bank. Everyone gasped again. 300 tons of gold. You didn't find the treasure island, did you? I fished it out of the sea, Chunjiao said, chuckling. He indeed had too much cash now. He wanted to sell it and collect some interest. Of course, the people before him were all his good friends. He couldn't give them high-interest loans, could he? So he could only provide low-interest loans. Even so, Chunjiao could only provide low-interest loans. In the end, the six of them bought 52% of the shares. They really couldn't buy more. For example, Zola bought 3% of the shares. She wouldn't be able to eat any more. Chunjiao had lent her $500 million for the 3% shares. Of course, she could borrow more money to buy more shares. But if that was the case, she wouldn't be able to hold on. After all, this money required interest. But before the completion of Nanqi Island's construction, it would not generate any profits. The basic construction of Nanqi Island would take at least a year. In other words, in a year's time, she would not be able to earn any profits. Furthermore, the investment in the infrastructure also depended on the proportion of their shares. The first budget for construction was $10 billion. If Zola bought 3% of the shares, she would have to invest $300 million. She still had to ask Chunjiao for a loan. This meant that she had to pay back Chunjiao's $800 million loan. Based on the bank's lowest interest rate, Zola would have to pay back a few $1 billion in total. Her Baroness's annual net profit was only a little more than $100 million. In the first 2 years, almost all of the Baroness's profits were used to pay off the money she owed Chunjiao. Of course, as long as Nanqi Island started to make a profit, the pressure on her would also be greatly reduced. However, according to their plan, they still needed to invest more money in the infrastructure. As for the money he lent out, it was basically transferred from his left hand to his right hand. The one who bought the most was Risfar. He was the most well-prepared. He spent $3 billion for 15% of the shares. The second was actually Dell. To be honest, Dell was not very rich, but he actually bought 11% of the shares. Even Chunjiao did not expect Dell to be able to take out $2 billion. Both Risfar and Risfar knew Chunjiao's background, so they knew many secrets that no one else knew. In fact, only Rasfa and Zola did not know about Chunjiao's supernatural powers. Amira and Stephen knew too. Amira bought 10% of the shares, while Rasfa bought 7%. Stephen bought 6%. Chunjiao still had 48% of the shares. Chun, you still have 48% of the shares. Do you plan to keep them or sell them? There's a lot of profit involved, so it's best to get more people in, Chunjiao said. But if outsiders want to buy, it won't be for 1% of the shares. It'll be 200 million. Chunjiao had already decided. Apart from the 3% he would reserve for Alex, the others would have to look at their status first, followed by their wealth. Why would they join without status? Rich. There were too many rich people in the world. As a profitable project, any rich person would want to do it. Alex's phone had already been ringing off the hook today. They all wanted to talk to her boss. They weren't idiots. For example, there were not many islands in the world with better project resources. Hawaii's only advantage was its sunny beaches, spring all year round, and a few crater volcanoes. But Hawaii's GDP had reached $700 billion last year. Tourism accounted for 70% of the GDP. Nanki Island's project was much better than Hawaii's. As long as Nanki Island's GDP could reach 10% of Hawaii's, it would be a huge profit for the shareholders. Should we give the island a name? Chen Zhao asked. He didn't plan on using the name Nanki Island anymore. After all, the name was a sensitive one. As a pirate base, some people still knew about Nanki Island. To avoid unnecessary trouble, Chen Zhao felt that it was better to give it a new name. The creatures on the island are all huge, Risfar said. Let's call it Titan Island. No, it's not special. The island's ecosystem is self-contained. How about calling it Creator Island? It sounds like some evil organization's experimental island. Are you sure tourists will come after hearing this name? Mystical Island, Stephen said calmly. Mystical Island? Isn't that too ordinary? Yeah, I think it's ordinary too. Everyone was questioning Stephen's naming standard. But Stephen said calmly, the more ordinary it is, the more effective it is. Mystical Island. This name can make people curious about the island. It doesn't need a fancy name. Everyone looked at each other. They seemed to be moved by Stephen's words. How about we hold the first shareholder meeting and vote to decide if we should give the island this name? Chen Zhao asked. Sure, let's vote. Chapter 2572. Mysterious Island. Those who agree raise your hands. 5 yes and 2 no, Chen Zhao said. Then it'll be called Mysterious Island from now on. By the way, Chen, Stephen suddenly asked, the ingredients I took from you in the past aren't from Mysterious Island, right? What ingredients? Amira asked. Chen Zhao's face darkened. Great, now he had another pair of hands. An hour later. Isn't this too good? Amira exclaimed. What ingredients are these? I've never had such good food before. Chen, can you supply them in bulk? Limited, Chen Zhao said. But he suddenly thought of Demon Island's otherworldly god. It tasted better. Compared to Chen Zhao's other ingredients, he could supply more of them. These top-level delicacies are definitely the best way to attract customers, Amira said. Chen Zhao thought about it. Every year, he would take 5 otherworldly gods from Demon Island. This wasn't enough. An adult otherworldly god would at most be 40 tons. 5 would be 200 tons. 200 tons wasn't enough for an island's tourists. I have another ingredient that's better, Chen Zhao said. But the supplier can only supply 100 tons a year. 100 tons isn't a lot. But it's not a lot either. Indeed, it's a bit awkward. Chen, then let's open a top-level restaurant on the island and invite Michelin magazine to cover it a few times. Didn't you say that Michelin magazine can't be bribed? Bullshit. Even the congressman can be bribed. Why do you think the editors of Michelin magazine can't be bribed? Are they better? No problem opening a restaurant, but the ingredients need to be paid separately. Give us the ingredients first. We need to evaluate it ourselves. Stephen grinned. He'd gotten a lot of ingredients from Chen Zhao. He knew how good Chen Zhao's ingredients were. After eating Chen Zhao's ingredients, he even felt that the other top-level ingredients were trash. Having a strong appetite was a scary thing. It would make people lose their expectations for most delicacies. Everyone was also very interested in the top-level ingredients Chen Zhao mentioned. The ingredients Chen Zhao had taken out were already enough to fill their stomachs. But they weren't even the top-level ingredients Chen Zhao mentioned. How good would the top-grade ingredients be? Okay. Chen Zhao stood up and went into the kitchen. Soon, Chen Zhao came out with a large square piece of meat. Although this piece of meat had been frozen, it was placed in a low-temperature area. So the meat retained its original texture. It had to be said that the god of otherworldlings was a top-notch ingredient. It made sense that even the great demon king couldn't resist its flesh. Let's not talk about its taste. Just the cut pattern alone was like an exquisite painting. After the spirit chi it carried fused with the meat itself, it emitted a faint fragrance. Even if it wasn't cooked yet, it was already enough to make people hungry. Rumble, Stephen gulped. Fuck, if you have such good ingredients, why haven't I seen you take them out? Steven said, wiping his mouth. At this moment, Amira narrowed his eyes and said, I think 100 tons is too much. 100 kilograms a day should be enough. Everyone could not help but glance at Amelia, before nodding thoughtfully. Indeed, no matter how good things were, if there were too many of them, others might not treasure them. The rarer something was, the greater its value. If you have extra, sell it to me. Amira suddenly laughed. In your dreams, Steven snorted. He wouldn't give Amira any face. So what if Amira was richer than him? Regardless, the 6 of them still managed to extort a piece of meat from Chen Zhao. They'd already tasted it at Chen Zhao's house. Alex, how much do you plan on buying? Chen Zhao asked. Alex gulped down the water in her glass. She'd been really busy today, because she was Chen Zhao's representative. So, she was also brought to the public. Everyone was asking about the cooperation. Even some top-tier crocodiles wanted to get a share. But hearing Chen Zhao's question, Alex felt even more pained. She'd thought that she was already very rich. Last time, she'd gotten $290 million from Chen Zhao's commission. Adding on her miscellaneous assets, her total was over $300 million. But Chen Zhao, that D*Ned bastard, asked for $200 million for each 1% of the shares. In other words, she couldn't even afford 2% with her current cash. Even if she used her assets as collateral, she could only get $20 to $30 million. How many more shares do you plan on selling? Alex asked. My friend already bought most of the shares, Chen Zhao said. I need to reserve 30% for myself, so there's 18% left. Alex really wanted to wave her hand generously and say, I'll take care of the rest. Unfortunately, she didn't have the courage. Even for her, 2% of the shares was too much. She couldn't eat it. Even though she knew that every bit of the shares was priceless, she couldn't help it. But she just couldn't eat it. How about this? Chen Zhao said. I'll lend you the money for 3% of the shares. No interest. Alex stared blankly for a moment, then silently nodded. Just then, Chen Zhao received a call from Denver. Denver, what's up? Mr. Chen, that island is yours, right? Chen Zhao was stunned. How did Denver know? How did you know? Ms. Alex is your personal lawyer. Fine. Mr. Chen, do you have any development plans for the island that has emerged from the sea? Yes, but it's a big project. Chen Zhao wanted Denver to back off. But Denver didn't back off. Instead, he said, Mr. Chen, no matter how big it is, I hope to get involved. Mr. Denver, do you know the conditions? I have $1 billion, Denver said. You're that rich? Mr. Chen, did you forget? I also have shares in Dashan Beer. But those shares can't be sold, Chen Zhao said. If you want to sell it, you can only sell it to me. This was the condition when Chen Zhao had given Denver the shares as a bonus. If Denver wanted to sell the shares, he could only sell them to Chen Zhao at 120% of the market price. I can mortgage it to the bank, so it's not impossible for me to take out $1 billion. Do you know how much someone offered me? I don't know, but I asked around and found out that someone offered Ms. Alex $1.55 billion for 3% of the shares. Chapter 2573. Money doesn't mean you can buy shares, Chen Zhao said calmly. At the end of the day, Denver was just working for him. So, Chen Zhao didn't have to give Denver face. Mr. Chen, I know a friend, a very rich friend. And? Chen Zhao asked unconcerned. There were countless rich people in the world. That person also wants to buy shares. What does that have to do with you buying shares? I know where his bottom line is. Denver, make it clear. I don't like secretive conversations. I want to buy 2% of the shares for 1% and $500 million, Denver said. In exchange, I'll tell you what his bottom line is. Like I said, not everyone is qualified to buy it. There are many rich people contacting Alex, and I don't think your friend is the richest. It was time to split the cake. The people who could buy shares were either people close to Chen Zhao, or people with power. For example, people who could cause trouble for the project. Amira was one of them. Chen Zhao had pulled her in from the start not only because they knew each other, but also because of her family's power. If there was any trouble in the future, Amira and her family would definitely intervene out of consideration for their own interests. Mr. Chen, maybe I don't have the right, but that person definitely does. Tell me who he is. Cruise King Jane Fenkel. Chen Zhao was unfamiliar with the name, or rather, he had never heard of it before. However, Alex was right beside him. Covering the phone, Chen Zhao asked, "Do you know the Cruise King Jane Fenkel?" "I know. The initiator of the biggest merger in the last century is Jane Fenkel, who swallowed up the former cruise line giant. She is currently at the helm of the world's largest cruise line, Caribbean Empire Cruise Line. Caribbean Empire Cruise Line owns 28 top-class cruise ships, including 6 of the world's top 10 cruise ships. The Deep Blue of the Ocean owned by the company is the largest and most luxurious cruise ship in the world. Mr. Chen, if I were you, I definitely wouldn't reject Jane Fenkel's shares," Denver said. Denver said, "You should know how many excellent passengers each cruise ship can bring to you." Chen Zhao didn't deny it. In fact, he was already tempted. Jane Fenkel had the right to buy shares. She's buying shares? Or the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line? It's an individual, but it will soon become the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line, because this company will soon be delisted and become Jane Fenkel's personal property. Then what's his bottom line? 2 billion, Denver said. Chen Zhao froze. Wasn't the price too high? How could Jane Fenkel come up with so much money? Are you sure you didn't report it wrong? Even Chen Zhao himself didn't dare to value Mysterious Island, which still had nothing, at $200 billion. The other party actually dared to directly give $2 billion for 1% of the shares? It was like a sunrise industry, no matter how great the future was. No one dared to say how much this industry was worth before it generated any profits. "I'm sure I'm right," Denver said. "How many shares does Jane Fenkel plan to buy?" Chen Zhao asked. 10%. You mean, he's going to spend $20 billion to buy 10% of the Mysterious Island shares? Are you sure he can afford it? No. It's using the shares of the Caribbean Empire Cruise Company to exchange for shares of equal value. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. Is the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line valued at $200 billion? Yes, Denver answered. Denver replied, Caribbean Empire Cruise Line's operation and profits in recent years have been very impressive. Last year's profit reached $8.9 billion. The average profit of each cruise reached $310 million. Caribbean Empire Cruise Line's routes cover all the deep-water ports in the world. At the same time, it also delivers hundreds of thousands of high-quality tourists to major ports. Chen Zhao raised an eyebrow. I don't think it's a good idea to reveal his bottom line like this. Mr. Chen, do you think I'd say so much without his permission? Did this Jane Fenkel send you to test me? Yes. Also, I need to correct your grammar. You should call her madam. Okay. Chen Zhao was a bit awkward. How about you? How many shares do you plan to buy? 2%. $1 billion, Denver said. This was also the maximum amount of shares he could buy. He obviously couldn't compare to Jane Fenkel. Sure, but I need to contact Jane Fenkel first before I can trade with you. Of course. You can set the time. After ending the call with Denver, Chen Zhao turned to Alex. Your job's here. Chen, I'm actually your lawyer, not a business consultant. I don't even want to charge you interest. Can't you do me a small favor? Fine. Tell me about the situation first. Chen Zhao told her what he'd heard from Denver. You want to facilitate this share swap? Yes. In the short term, you'll benefit from this share swap. But in the long term you won't. How many years will it take for Mysterious Island to be valued at $200 billion? Although the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line is very profitable, it has reached its limit. Moreover, the competition in the cruise industry is very fierce. If they can't find a new source of customers and a deepwater port, they will go downhill. What Jane Fenkel is interested in is the new source of customers on the mystical island. Although her cruise line can bring a lot of tourists, she can also get more customers. Moreover, the mystical island doesn't lack the cooperation of cruise lines. Even without the Caribbean Empire Cruise Line, there will be other cruise lines trying to get in front of us. You don't have to worry about whether there will be a cruise line willing to dock. So I'm losing money in this deal. There's no such thing as profit or loss in business. I'm just stating our current position. We don't need them, but they definitely can't do without us. They should be the ones who are anxious. You can ask for more. It looks like we have the upper hand, but with their current valuation, I don't think they'll be willing to pay more than a 1:1 ratio. I don't think we can increase the share swap ratio, but we can make them pay more. How much more do you think they'll pay? If it's a few hundred million, forget it. What if it's 5 billion? Are you sure you can do it? Chen Zhao couldn't believe it. He felt that Alex was asking for too much. In fact, Chen Zhao even felt that the prices he'd given his friends were like cabbages. Chapter 2574. The news outside was still everywhere. But Chen Zhao wasn't affected at all, as if it had nothing to do with him. This was the benefit of being a non-listed company. So what if someone found out his identity? He still had to follow the basic rules of the game. If someone purposely published all of his information in order to force Chen Zhao could have all the nude photos of his family appear in the magazine. Therefore, when facing a super-rich person, no one would easily cross the bottom line. Once the bottom line was crossed, it would become a game without a bottom line. It was like a nuclear weapon. When everyone could use it, no one dared to use it. Then Chen Zhao, Steven, Rasfa, Zola, Amira, Risfar, and Dell recommended representatives to form a team. Chen Zhao's representative was, of course, Alex. They all represented their own interests. At the same time, the team was in charge of planning the promotion and development of Mysterious Island. They were also in charge of contacting the outside world, such as service companies, hotels, shopping malls, luxury stores, supermarkets, and so on. Even the Disney Corporation tried to contact them. But for the amusement park project, everyone wanted to open it themselves. It would be completely different from other amusement parks. Chen Zhao didn't need to worry about these trivial matters. Most of the time, he only needed to sign. Fuck. All the police in New York are looking for us. Fidek is dead too, Rock is dead too, and Nanier is dead too. Her head was cut in half by a bullet. Only the three of us are left now. There were 4 people hiding in the small house in the woods. They had just robbed a bank and got $300,000, and they managed to get away. But the price was that 3 of their friends had died. And because in the course of the robbery, they shot 4 police officers. All the police in New York were looking for them like crazy. They couldn't move an inch now, even though they had $300,000. But they didn't even dare to go out of the woods. Knock, knock. Just then slow footsteps came from outside. It was the sound of thick-soled shoes stepping on wooden boards. However, the footsteps sounded a little strange. The 4 people in the house immediately stood up and glanced at each other. They raised their weapons at the same time. Pavel, you're being followed? No. How could that be? Popper immediately shook his head. It definitely wasn't me. At this moment, Sedmer was behind the door with his shotgun. The other 3 also found cover. Some hid behind the fireplace, while others put down the table and hid behind it. Creak. The door of the wooden house was slowly pushed open. A familiar figure appeared in front of everyone. However, Sadmar, who was hiding behind the door, did not notice who it was. He smashed the back of the man's head with the butt of his gun. The man staggered a few steps, but did not fall to the ground. Don't move, Sidmar shouted. Stop! 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 She's Nanier, Perwell shouted. At this moment, Sadmar also stopped and stared at the familiar figure in disbelief. Nanier stood there, her body dripping with blood, her hair disheveled. There was a very obvious gap in her head. However, from the gap in the skull, what he saw wasn't brain juice, but a piece of gray flesh. At first they wanted to protect Nanier, but now they all backed away. A human brain was definitely not like that. Nanier twisted her neck. Her every movement gave everyone goosebumps, even if they were all extremely vicious and evil people. But when faced with Nanier's abnormal behavior, they all shuddered. My friends, is this how you treat your friend, your boss? Nanier said in a low voice. Even though it was just her voice, it was enough to make people shudder. You're not Nanier. Who are you? Or, what are you? Popper asked in a low voice. The pistol in his hand was still raised. I'm Nanier. Is there a problem with that? No, Nanier is a human, you're not. Huh. I'm the one who gathered you and united you. As for the past Nanier, you don't need to know her. You don't need to know her. Nanier reached out and brushed her messy hair back. At the same time, she covered the hole in her skull. I fought alone outside and killed all the policemen, but you left me behind. This makes me very angry. Only then did everyone notice that Nanier was covered in blood. There were at least 30 police officers, and a dozen police cars chasing them. All by her. Just then, Nanier reached out and pulled out a bullet from the gun in her stomach. Then her arms, chest, thighs, and back. She pulled out bullets one by one. Are you still going to point your guns at me? Popper and the others exchanged glances and finally lowered their guns. Nanier, boss, who exactly are you? They could tell that bullets weren't much of a threat to Nanier. They definitely didn't have as much ammo as the 30 police officers. Since Nanier could kill 30 police officers, she could probably kill a few of them too. It would be very unwise to point their guns at him now. Anyway, you're my subordinates. As long as you don't betray me, I won't abandon you, Nanier said calmly. Now can someone get me some food? I need to replenish my energy. If you don't want me to eat you, you better go and prepare it now. Okay, I'm kidding. I don't eat humans, at least not under normal circumstances. My digestive system is still a human's digestive system. I have an extreme rejection for flesh and blood of my own kind. Everyone shuddered at the sight of it. They hurriedly took out the food and watched as Nanier stuffed the food into her mouth with both hands. Boss, what should we do next? The police outside are probably searching for us like crazy. Leave, of course. I killed so many police officers. I'm sure the government will send the army to deal with us. I don't want to face a fully armed army. But how do we leave here? Slap. Just then, Nanier threw down a few bloody human faces. Everyone shuddered and looked at Nanier in fear. They didn't understand Nanier's intentions. Change your face, and they won't be able to find us. Chapter 2575. How do we use it? It's a little complicated, but believe me, you'll like the change. Everyone's expression was not good. After all, Nanier's eyes were very evil. I don't think we need this thing. Perwill's expression was a little fearful. He did not know what Nanier was going to do, but he instinctively felt that what Nanier was going to do was definitely not good. At this moment, the bloody human faces began to wriggle. If one looked closely, they would see many small wriggling tentacles at the edge of the human skin. The process is painful, but you'll also get a new identity. What if I don't want it? Boss, will you kill me? Everyone looked at Perwill, waiting for Nanier's answer. No, but I won't save you either, Nanier said. At most I'll just hide here. The police can't always put me on the wanted list. The police will find this place soon, Nanier said calmly. Perwill's expression changed. Just then, Jeffries picked up a human skin. The human skin was still squirming in his hand. How do I use this? Just put it on your face. After Jeffries put the human skin on his face, the tentacles easily pierced into his skin. Ah! Jeffries screamed. Jeffries, what's wrong? No. I'm fine. I'm fine. Jeffries waved his hand. Everyone could see that the skin on that person's face was constantly straightening and smoothing out the originally unflattened skin. Soon, Jeffries became a different person. From his body shape to his appearance, even his hair color had changed. Jeffries was originally a short, brown-haired man less than 1.7 meters tall. But now he looked at least 1.8 meters tall. His body was burly, and his hair had turned black and yellow. Jeffries? Everyone could not believe that the man in front of them was Jeffries. This was not just a change of face, it was a complete rebirth. Phew, this feels so good. I feel full of power. In the end, everyone chose the human skin. No one sensed anything strange. Now no one knows our past identities, Nanier said with satisfaction. Everyone looked at Nan and I, because she hadn't changed. But at that moment, Nanier's face squirmed and quickly changed into another face. Where are we going now? Let's go to a place that we can enjoy. $300,000 is enough for us to enjoy unprecedented happiness, Nanier said. However, Nanier and her men soon found out. $300,000 was really not a lot, especially in a place like Los Angeles. $300,000 was only enough for them to spend 3 days in Los Angeles. 3 days later, they became paupers. Everyone looked at each other. Boss, how much money do we have? I don't have a penny left. My card has been maxed out. Nan was also confused. In her memory, $300,000 was a lot. It was a huge sum of money. But why? It seems that I can only go back to my old profession, Nan said calmly. If we're going to rob something this time, we'll rob a big bank. Just one robbery is enough for us to live comfortably for the rest of our lives, Popwell said. But we have no weapons. Last time they flew from New York to Los Angeles, they naturally lost all their weapons. Now they didn't even have a single bullet. Let's rob a gun store first. It was easy for them to rob a gun store, especially at night. For a group of people who could rob a bank, the anti-theft measures of the gun store were really not enough. In fact, they just needed to cut off the power of the gun store. It was almost like a girl who had her legs ripped off. It was very easy for these vicious bandits to obtain a large amount of firearms, and many of them were fully automatic weapons. Popwell, have you found the target? Boss, there are too many banks in Los Angeles, and almost all of them are heavily guarded. It won't be easy to get them. Bullshit. Our firepower is so strong. I don't think any bank's defenses can stop our firepower, Nan said disdainfully. Everyone was speechless. Their firepower was indeed strong, but the key problem was that they couldn't really start a massacre. They were bank robbers, not rebels. Boss, don't worry. It's not like there aren't any. It's hard to find one in Los Angeles. But the ones slightly further away might not be as heavily guarded as the ones in the city. Popwell was very afraid. Their boss wasn't human. I don't want to wait too long. Not long, not long. At most 3 days. 3 days is too long. I don't want to pick up food from the trash. I want top-quality beef and exquisite pastries. Nan was very unhappy. Forget it. It's useless to count on you. Looks like I'll have to do it myself. Boss, what are you doing? Building an army, Nan said calmly. Building an army? Everyone was dumbfounded. How? Go to Africa and hire black people? No need for that, Nan said disapprovingly. Boss, what exactly do we do? It's simple, Nan said casually. You don't have to do anything. Nan tapped her temples with 2 fingers. An invisible and untouchable psychic energy spread out. Chen Zhao was taking a bath in the lake. Suddenly, he felt an unfamiliar spiritual power attack him. This mental power was unfamiliar, but Chen Zhao was very familiar with its methods. Wasn't this the unusual god's method? It had been used for hundreds of years. Didn't the unusual god have any other methods? For example, something more substantial. Mortals, submit to me. I will give you wealth, power, and eternal life. Chen Zhao suddenly opened his eyes. Go away. At the same time, Nan, who was in a corner of Los Angeles, suddenly opened her eyes. Nan suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. Boss, what's wrong? Damn it. There's a terrifying guy here. Nan remembered this aura. When she escaped from Demon Island, she remembered that the owner of this aura had torn her kind apart one by one. She had also escaped during the chaos, but Nan was very familiar with this aura. Chapter 2576. Nan rushed out of the house. The others quickly followed. Although they didn't know what had happened, they felt that something terrible had happened. Taos, which direction is the wind now? Boss, what's wrong? What happened? Which direction is the wind now? The wind is southeast. Nan stretched out her hand and felt the breeze. Then he's in that direction. Nan's spiritual power spread out, but she couldn't completely control the direction. It could only spread with the wind. Basically, as long as she knew the direction, she would know the general direction of the aura. Let's leave Los Angeles, Nan said. It was too dangerous here. To be precise, that person was too dangerous. What? We didn't succeed, did we? Succeed? If we stay here, we'll only lose our lives. Nan wasn't afraid of the police. For her, it would just take a little more time to kill them. She wasn't afraid of the army either, as long as it was in a densely populated area. No matter how powerful the army was, they couldn't release it in a densely populated area. Therefore, Nanier had been pursuing the idea of hiding in the city. But that was when there were no strong people of the same level nearby. But now, not only were there people nearby, but they were also nightmarish. If it was someone of the same level, or just a little stronger, Nanier felt that she could rely on the wisdom and means she inherited from her predecessors. It was definitely more than enough to deal with them. But the problem now was that the person was not strong at all. Nanier didn't think that the so-called conspiracy and tricks would work on that person. Boss, what happened? We don't have a penny now. Where can we go? Get a car, Nanier said. Now immediately right now. But, why? There's someone more terrifying than me here. Everyone looked at each other. They knew who Nanier was. To be precise, they didn't know what kind of terrifying existence Nanier was. But one thing was certain. Nanier was terrifying. Because they had seen the news when they fled from New York to Los Angeles. More than 30 New York police officers were killed by Nanier alone. She was simply a devil from hell. And this was just a little bit of her power. It was definitely not her full strength. But there was someone here who could make her so afraid. This cast a shadow over everyone's hearts. Boss, Los Angeles is big. It shouldn't be that easy to find us. You don't know how terrifying that person is. Several hundred of my clansmen were torn apart by him. He's the true fiend. There was extreme panic in Nanier's eyes. Besides, if he gets close to me, I won't be able to sense him at all. But if I get within a certain range of him, he will sense me. How big do you think Los Angeles is? When I used my spirit magic just now, he already sensed it. Maybe he's searching for me now. Boss, we have guns with our firepower. We can hold out for 20 minutes even against all the police in Los Angeles. Unless you blow him up with a nuclear warhead, you won't be able to kill him. For him, killing me is no different from killing an ant. Everyone was speechless. Nuclear warhead? What a joke. They couldn't even get their hands on unconventional weapons, let alone nuclear warheads. Everyone was finally convinced by Nanier. In fact, even if they didn't agree, Nanier would still leave by herself. In any case, she would not stay here. The psychological pressure was too great. They got a car on the street and left the city that night. However, the car ran out of gas on the way. They had no choice but to rob another gas station. In the morning, Nanier saw Los Angeles and felt a lot less stressed. Well, don't be afraid when we're out of the city. Let's find a place to eat first. Boss, let's hurry up. It's not too far from Los Angeles. No, I'm hungry, Nanier said. Although Nanier was possessed by the god of otherworldlings, she was not an ordinary god of otherworldlings. She fed on desire, but she liked human food even more. She also liked everything that humans enjoyed. She gathered Powell and the others because they exuded an aura of desire. They were the most lustful among humans. But she was also dominated by desire. Boss, let's go back. It's not far from Los Angeles. If you don't let me eat, I'll eat you, Nanier said coldly. But we don't have money. Didn't you just rob more than $100 at the gas station? Everyone was helpless and could only compromise. However, their abnormal behavior still attracted the attention of the shop assistant. Fortunately, it was still early. There were no other customers in the store except the shop assistant. They knocked the shop assistant out. This saved them a lot of trouble. Under the urging of the crowd, Nanier was only half full. They did not dare to be too ostentatious during the day. After all, it would be quite troublesome if they were chased by the police during the day, unless they once again escaped into the deep mountains and forests. But soon Nanier made trouble again. Nanier did not know how to control herself at all. When they passed by a shopping street, Nanier wanted to get out of the car and rob the luxury store when she saw the name brands. Finally, they managed to stop Nanier from escaping. Not only did Nanier have the same desire as a woman, but she also expanded it. She had unlimited and unrestrained desire. Except for Nanier, they were not interested in luxury goods. At least, they now felt that eating was more valuable than robbing. I don't care. I want to sleep on a branded bag. I want to have a sumptuous meal in front of me. I want to live in the best house. I want the sun, I want the beach. Nan and I made trouble again. Everyone looked at Nan and I. They knew that she was difficult to please. But they had money before, so they did not feel that it was unacceptable. But now they had no money at all. $100 was not even enough for a meal. Just when everyone was having a headache, Nan and I suddenly stopped making trouble. Everyone was surprised. Why did Nan and I's tantrum end so quickly? That's a bank, Nan and I said, looking across the road. Yes, Powell nodded. But when he suddenly saw the name of the bank, he suddenly shivered. Boss, that's Citibank. We can't afford to offend them. Chapter 2577. Chen Zhao had a rare free time these 2 days. When he was free, he would go to Cliff and Amber's new kindergarten to check on the progress. Right now, Chen Zhao was returning from the supermarket with the kids. Just then his phone rang. It was Yamla on the phone. Chen, something happened. What can happen? Did someone rob your bank? How do you know? Wait, you didn't do it, did you? Huh. Chen Zhao was dumbfounded. He was just talking. If he didn't talk every day, he would feel uncomfortable all over. He didn't expect to run into trouble. You were really robbed? Yes. Wait, you didn't suspect me from the start, did you? What did I do that made you suspect me? I didn't suspect you. You said it yourself. But even if you were robbed, you shouldn't have called me, right? I'm not in charge of this kind of criminal case. It's your gold that's being robbed, said Amira. You're not suspecting me just because of that, right? I said I didn't suspect you, but what? Our bank didn't lose a single cent. Why? Didn't you say that the gold I sold you was robbed? It was indeed robbed. But our bank didn't even have time to hand over the money. The truck you used to transport the gold was still parked at the entrance, and the robber didn't manage to rob our bank of the money. In the process of escaping, he drove away with the truck. Their conversation suddenly fell into silence. The normal transaction process was to transport the gold to the bank. Then, the bank would receive it, count it, and transfer the money to complete the final transaction. If the gold was robbed in the bank, it had nothing to do with Chen Zhao. But now, the gold was robbed at the door before it even entered the bank. Chen Zhao felt stifled. It wasn't much. It was only 35 tons of gold. It was close to $1. 2 billion. Indeed, it wasn't much for Chen Zhao. But his things had been robbed. How could he be happy? I'll go right now, Chen Zhao said. Okay. Half an hour later, Chen Zhao arrived at the bank. Andrews was waiting for him at the door. Mr. Chen, I'm sorry. Although this had almost nothing to do with him. But he still had to make his stance clear. After all, he was Chen Zhao's representative. He was in charge of the bank's inventory. So he watched from the side. It's none of your business. Take me to Amira first, Chen Zhao said. Soon Chen Zhao saw Amira. What's the specific situation? Look at the surveillance. Chen Zhao had some complaints about Amira. After all, the gold was lost in front of her house. Even if this had nothing to do with her, it didn't stop Chen Zhao from blaming Amira. Amira showed Chen Zhao the surveillance footage. A few people wearing animal masks rushed into the bank. One of the robbers, who was obviously a female, used an unknown technique. The bank's customers and lobby staff suddenly acted like they were possessed and began to help the robbers. But the robbers couldn't open the backstage door. After trying for a minute, the robbers left decisively. Then the customers and employees who were controlled fainted on the ground. Then Amira switched to the outside of the bank. A large truck stopped right in front of the gate. Moreover, the truck stopped just as the robbers entered the bank. Then the robbers didn't care anymore. They kicked the original driver out of the car and drove the truck away in a hurry. Chen Zhao had to admit that he was very unlucky. Very, very unlucky. You didn't find the truck? Chen Zhao asked. With so much gold in such a big truck, it should be very eye-catching. Plus, it's not easy for them to change vehicles in the city. We couldn't find it. We contacted the municipal government and asked for the surveillance footage of all the intersections, but the truck seemed to be invisible. It suddenly disappeared on a straight road. Chen Zhao frowned and disappeared on a straight road. Since the surveillance couldn't find it, it was physical invisibility. In other words, it was true invisibility. If it was only mental hypnosis, it could fool people's eyes, but it couldn't fool the surveillance footage. Chen Zhao took a deep breath. Amira glanced at Chen Zhao. She could see the anger that was about to explode in Chen Zhao's eyes. The truck reached the end of the road. In front of it was a barren desert. Hot wind blew against their faces. "Boss, there's someone behind us." "I knew. Let's stop here," Nanier said disapprovingly. Her powerful mental strength had already discovered that there were two people's mental strengths in the rear compartment. However, both of them were in a state of extreme panic. Nania walked to the truck and nodded at Perwell and Sidemar. The two immediately opened the door of the truck. Just then there were loud gunshots. The two guards protecting the gold fired without hesitation. They were trapped in the truck, but there were surveillance cameras in the truck. They knew what was happening outside. Nanier's body was instantly riddled with holes. But she just wouldn't fall. Suddenly, a terrifying light shot out of Nanier's eyes. Ah! With two screams, the two guards fell to the ground, covering their heads. Nanier sneered. Two regular people actually dared to fight her head-on. They really didn't know what death was. Boss, what are you screaming for?" Nania looked at Perwell annoyed. Powell's voice was trembling as he pointed at the inside of the container. Although the truck was closed, it was bright inside. When Nania raised her head and looked in the direction of Perwell's finger, she almost couldn't close her mouth. The golden light almost blinded her eyes. Ah! The three people in front of the truck, including Nanier, screamed. The people in front heard the screams and came over. Then they also joined in the screaming. Gold! Endless gold! Nanier finally controlled her emotions. She swallowed her saliva. Gold! That was gold! Even though Nanier was a god of otherworldlings. But she also knew what gold represented. Wealth. It was endless wealth. Ha ha. Nanier suddenly laughed wildly. She would retire after this job. That's what she meant. Nanier rushed up, grabbed the two gold bricks and kissed them. "Boss, there is a lot of gold, but how do we exchange it for cash?" Nanier narrowed her eyes, her gaze flickering. She attached herself to this body, and also obtained all the memories of the previous owner. She knew that the gold could not be used directly as money. Chapter 2578. The gold robbers were in a dilemma about how to turn the gold into cash. Nanier was lost in thought. No one knew what she was thinking. "Boss, even if we have unparalleled treasures, we have no way to turn them into cash. What should we do?" "It's not completely impossible," Nanier said with twinkling eyes. "Boss, do you have a way?" "I happen to know that there are several of our kind nearby. They formed a cult," Nanier said. "Close the container, and let's go in another direction." Although the truck changed direction, it was getting more and more desolate. After a few hours of driving, the truck arrived at a canyon. "Go to the left," Nanier instructed. The truck drove off the highway and onto a dirt road. As the truck drove past, it raised a cloud of dust. The truck drove until it came to a very large dirt mound. "Boss, there's no road ahead." Nanier got out of the truck and put her fingers on her temples. "Come out, it's a road to the unknown." Just then, a gate appeared on the edge of the dirt mound. It was a rusty bronze gate, exuding a puzzling aura. Nanier raised her arm and shouted, "I am Fina Nizmi, and I come as a member of the same clan." Hee, the bronze gate slowly opened. It was just a thin surface, but behind the bronze gate was an unreachable abyss. Nanier waved her hand. "Drive in." Powell and the others who were driving the truck were panicking at the moment. This was because there was nothing behind the bronze door. There was nothing at all. Were they sure they wouldn't die if they drove in? But under Nanier's urging, Powell still drove the truck in. Then Nanier followed and entered the bronze gate. When Powell turned on the headlights, he found that the truck was parked in a huge and dark cave. Just then, they saw Nanier's feet suddenly leave the ground and she floated up. Hiss! Although they knew that their boss was not a human. But when they saw Nanier get rid of the gravity and float up, they still felt a chill. Nanier's body also emitted a faint light. Although it was not very strong, it could illuminate a radius of about 15 meters. "Get out," Nanier said. They got out and continued to walk forward. Not long after, they heard heavy breathing in front of them. Suddenly, a huge light source appeared on the wall in front of them. It was a large balloon that looked like it had dried up. There were many lumps of flesh on the shriveled balloon. There were also 2 huge tentacles hanging on the ground. The thing that looked like a deflated balloon, in everyone's eyes, was actually a living thing. Its body glowed with green light. Everyone was shocked when they saw the true face of this thing. So big. What the hell is this? Aliens? Fina Nizmi, what are you doing here? Hello, Elder Cage. Nanier bowed respectfully and said, I heard that you, Elder Raysar and Elder Kalen Masa, have formed the 3 Gods sect, and intend to spread the doctrine among humans. So I want to make a deal with you. Suddenly, Perwil saw another yellow light source on his left. It was also a giant balloon. It didn't look as big as Elder Cage, but it was fuller and rounder. There were countless tentacles all over its body, unlike Elder Cage, who only had 2 thick tentacles. Just then another balloon appeared on the right. It was glowing red, and about the same size as the second meatball. It didn't have tentacles, but there were many sarcomas on its body. Fina Nizmi, do you want to make a deal with us? Do you know what you're talking about? The yellow light source rumbled. Fina Nizmi, have you forgotten who we are? Or has your generation forgotten who we are? Nan Nier's face showed a hint of mockery, but she quickly covered it up. Of course, she didn't forget that these 3 elders could be considered her brothers, because they were all hatched from eggs laid by their mothers. At the same time, they could be said to be the first rulers of the devil prison. They were hatched from the first batch of eggs laid by their mothers. Then, over the course of 2,000 years, they obtained unparalleled authority in the demon prison, which could not be considered to be very large. Perhaps the demons who raised them let them do as they pleased. They allowed Cage, Quillan Masa, and Raysar, the 3 otherworldly gods, to devour their own kind. After devouring countless brothers and sisters, and growing for 2,000 years, they also grasped unparalleled power. This was something the otherworldly gods couldn't compare to. It could be said that in the devil prison, other than their mothers, all otherworldly gods were food to them. Once a otherworldly god that was slightly close to their power appeared, they would devour it. In the devil prison, all the otherworldly gods submitted to their terrifying rule. But in the end, they were just dogs raised by the demons. Dogs. Did they need to be respected? Only Nan Nier didn't need to worry, because she was the mother, the new generation's mother. If it was in the devil prison, the old mother would directly order the otherworldly gods to kill her. But the situation now was different. Although she didn't replace the old mother, she escaped from the devil prison. She was also out of the old mother's control. Nan Nier's power might not be strong. To be precise, she was very weak among the otherworldly gods. But as the mother, she still had a special domain. This domain was hers when she was born. She could be strong, but she could also be weak, because this domain was only effective against the otherworldly gods. Inviolable. As long as she was in this domain, no otherworldly god could hurt her. They were not even allowed to attack her. Because of this, Nan Nier dared to meet the 3 elders of the otherworldly gods. She was the only one who could attack others, and no one could attack her. Don't you want to hear the contents of my deal, elders? We never trade, we only rob, Quillan Masa said indifferently. Nan Nier's expression changed slightly, but she still said calmly, this deal is almost free for you. Okay, I'll give you a chance to speak, Cage said. I brought a lot of gold, and you will need a lot of money to establish a church. So I want to ask Elder Cage to turn this gold into cash. But you can't remove the domain power within 3 days. Chapter 2579. In Inferno, only Cage, Kalen Masa, and Raysal had mastered the power of the realm. Although they seemed invincible, in fact, they were high-level ingredients raised by the demons. Of course, they had already escaped. As long as they were not caught by the demons, they would be completely unrestrained. Cage's realm was called the Realm of Illusion. It could turn real objects into illusions, and fake objects into reality. For example, the gold that Nanier brought this time. Cage could turn the gold into dollars, but it could only exist in the realm. Once it was out of the realm, the illusion would be ineffective. Therefore, Cage needed to use his magic to maintain the realm. Nanier's conditions were simple. She would give the gold to Cage, Kalen Masa, and Raisal, and Cage would help them maintain the illusion for 3 days. As long as they deposited the money in the bank, it would be none of Cage's business whether he cancelled the realm or not. Since Cage, Kalen Masa, and Raisal had founded the Three Gods sect, they would definitely need a lot of money. What they were doing now was basically taking advantage of the situation. They promised the believers endless wealth, power, and strength. In fact, they did not have this ability. At least for the time being, they could not fulfill those promises with their poor assets. To Cage, Nanier's request was as easy as lifting a finger. Therefore, Nanier felt that there should be no obstacles to their deal. At this time, Cage suddenly raised his tentacles and slapped Nanier heavily. However, the tentacles did not hit Nanier, but the side of her. Fina Nizmi, I want the gold, but I don't agree to your conditions. Why? This is not difficult for you. Although it's not difficult, I can't use my realm for 3 days. Nanier obviously underestimated Cage's shamelessness and despicability. She thought that she was not afraid of the Three Gods. However, she completely ignored the fact that the Three Gods did not care about the terms of the deal. Although they could not attack her, it did not prevent them from leaving the big truck. And Nanier could not stop it at all. Nanier was unhappy that she underestimated the shamelessness of the Three Gods and overestimated her own ability. She had no bargaining chips in front of them. The so-called bargaining chip was when they had the same level of strength. Although Nanier had the ability to attack them, they couldn't fight back. But the problem was that even if Cage, Kalen Masa, and Raisal, the 3 otherworldling gods, stood still and let her hit them, she would not be able to hurt them. Therefore, this deal was completely untenable. One day, Nanier would grow to the point where she could hurt them. He didn't need to be too powerful. He just needed to be able to cause a certain amount of damage. That was when they gave in. However, to wait for that day, it might take a few hundred years, or even 1,000 years. But before this, Nanier was not qualified to talk to them at all. You can scram now. Nanier clenched her fists and glared at Cage, Kalen Masa, and Raisal. It was as if he wanted to remember their faces. Let's go. You can leave, but your subordinates can't. We don't have much food left, and they can serve as our food reserves. Nanier's eyes were instantly filled with anger. Popper and the others were even more panic-stricken. Do you 3 old things really intend to shed all pretense of cordiality? Haha, little thing. Your threat is meaningless to us. Nanier suddenly put up a spiritual barrier of nearly 10 meters and said to her subordinates behind her, "Hurry up and run." Popper and the others hesitated for a moment, then turned and ran. Kalen Masa's body emitted a hot red light. The heat was unbearable for Nanier. Although they couldn't directly attack Nanier, it didn't mean that they were completely helpless. Nanier couldn't avoid this kind of area attack. In other words, as long as they didn't directly attack Nanier, it would be fine. But Nanier was still struggling. The scorching heat was almost scorching her skin. She watched as her subordinates ran out of the cave one by one. Nanier glared at the 3 otherworldly gods with hatred. You'll pay the price. After saying that, Nanier turned and ran. All of a sudden, an iron cage appeared above Nanier, trapping her in it. Cage looked down at Nanier. Did I allow you to leave? Nanier sneered. Do you think you can stop me from leaving? The next moment, Nanier's body in the cage turned into specks of starlight. Spiritual body. The faces of Cage and the other 2 otherworldly gods couldn't help but sink. Although Nanier was confident that they couldn't hurt her, she had to be vigilant. So from the beginning, she didn't intend to break into the nest of the Three Gods sect alone. Instead, she used a pure spiritual body to transform into her own appearance. If it was someone else's spiritual body, the 3 powerful otherworldly gods would certainly have discovered it. But the target was Nanier, and their spiritual power couldn't directly scan Nanier. Remember my words, I'll make you pay. Popper and the others ran out of the bronze door and saw Nanier appear on the wall. But at this moment, Nanier's body was full of burn marks, and almost half of her hair was burned. They didn't understand why Nanier suddenly appeared in front of them when she was obviously guarding the rear. Boss, how are you? Nanier was very angry, and her face was full of rage. Boss, what should we do now? Revenge. But Popper and the others were full of hesitation. They could see how big the gap between Nan Near and the 3 giant meatballs was. They felt that they couldn't fight against the 3 giant meatballs with their strength alone. But at this moment, Nan Near didn't care about that at all. She just wanted revenge. Revenge on those 3 damned bastards. The more Nan Near thought about it, the angrier she got. She couldn't calm down at all. But she knew the terrifying strength of the 3 otherworldly gods. Even if she was given 1,000 years, she wouldn't be a match for them. But her anger at this moment couldn't wait for 1,000 years. She had to take revenge now. Popper and the others all walked in front. They could feel that Nan Near's emotions at this moment were like a volcano that was about to erupt, and could be released at any time. They didn't think they could withstand Nan Near's outburst. No one dared to persuade Nan Near. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2580. Suddenly Nan Near stopped. Her eyes flickered. Seeing her eyes, everyone felt that she was making a dangerous decision. Yes, she really couldn't beat 3 alien gods. But someone could. The more Nan Near thought about it, the more she thought it was a good idea. Let's go back. Chen Zhao had been in a bad mood these 2 days. No one would be happy to lose their money. He'd lost $2 billion too. To Chen Zhao, this wasn't a huge loss. But it still made him feel terrible. Someone had embarrassed him here. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao from afar. She didn't know what had happened. However, something bad must have happened for Chen Zhao to have such a long face all day. Portia still avoided Chen Zhao voluntarily. She didn't want Chen Zhao to use her as a tool to vent. Just then Chen Zhao's phone rang. Human. A woman's voice came from the phone. Who is it? Chen Zhao was confused. Was it a prank? Why did she call him human? I don't like this kind of joke. Chen Zhao's tone turned cold. Do you think I'm joking with you? I hope you are. Human. Do you think I should be afraid of you just because you say that? You should be. Huh. I'm not afraid of you, the woman said. If you're here to provoke me, then you've succeeded. I'm very angry now. Come find me. My subordinates and I have prepared a big gift for you. Chen Zhao narrowed his eyes. Challenge? Or a trap? I'll wait for you in the desert north of LA. Normally, Chen Zhao would think twice before acting. But right now, he just wanted to find someone or something to vent his anger on. I'll do as you wish. Hurry, drive in that direction, Nan Near urged after hanging up. Boss, what do we do now? Perwell asked as he started the car he'd just stolen. They hadn't done anything else in the past 2 days. They'd only been investigating the phone number of the person Nan Near needed. Leave the coordinates, of course. Coordinates? What kind of coordinates? You won't understand even if I tell you. Nan Near clearly didn't want to explain the complicated spiritual marking to Perwell. The car sped forward, heading in the direction of the mound. The car was very fast. When they reached the hill, Nan Near jumped out of the car and opened the bronze door in the same way. Come on, let's get out of here, Nan Near said. Boss, are you sure this will work? It'll definitely work. Nan Near wasn't very confident because it looked too obvious. It was clearly a trap. If it were her, she would not fall for it so easily. But just as they were about to leave, a thick tentacle reached out from the bronze door and grabbed their car. Step on the gas. Since you're here, then don't leave. Just then, a huge blue ball of flesh crawled out of the bronze door. Raisal. Nan Near picked up the gun and fired at Raisal, who was standing in front of the windshield. Although the spear could not hurt Raisal, it could still cause him pain. Chen Zhao had the experience of controlling thousands of swords before, so controlling 5 black balls at the same time wasn't a problem at all. But controlling a 10-million-ton black ball was a matter of pure strength. He couldn't lift it up. So Chen Zhao fused the black ball above Raisal's head. Then, under the effect of gravity, it smashed into Raisal's body. Poof! Raisal's body deflated like a deflated balloon. Chapter 2581. Nan Near already knew how terrifying Chen Zhao was. But Perwell didn't know. He didn't know what was going on either. There was a whooshing sound in the air. Then Raisal shriveled up as if he'd been punched hundreds of times. Chen Zhao glanced at the shriveled Raisal, and then at the bronze door. Chen Zhao walked toward the bronze door. Nan Near looked at Chen Zhao's back. After Chen Zhao entered the bronze door, Nania jumped out of the car. She charged at Rezhal. Rezhal was suppressed by a black ball that didn't look very big. This also made it impossible for him to move. Every time he tried to recover, it would be destroyed instantly. His core was exposed to the air too. It couldn't cover his flesh at all. Nania looked at the bronze door again. It seemed like she was panicking too. But when she looked at Rezhal again, her eyes were filled with greed. Fina Nizmi. Save me. Save me. Rezhal couldn't move at all. He could only use his weak spiritual power to try to ask Nania for help. Okay. I'm coming to save you. Nania walked forward step by step. Suddenly, Nania pounced at Rishal's core. His core was several meters in diameter. Nania's palms pressed firmly against the core. Her 10 fingers turned into tendrils and started piercing into the core. Fina Nizmi, what are you doing? Stop. Stop. Rezhal screamed in terror. But he couldn't move. His body was firmly suppressed by the black ball. Rezhal, you can't be saved anymore. That person is here. Do you think you can escape? As Nania spoke, her hands didn't stop. She was still devouring Rishal's core. How dare you? I dare. Nania replied. Among the otherworldly gods, it was always the strong devouring the weak. There was almost no such thing as the weak devouring the strong. Powerful spiritual power entered Nania's body. There was no rejection at all. It was as if she'd returned to her origin. Rishal's heart became more and more shriveled. But Nania didn't change at all. Chun Zhao entered the bronze door. The first thing he saw was the big truck. His expressionless face suddenly turned cold. Two powerful waves of spiritual power rushed out of the darkness. It rushed toward Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao was no stranger to this type of spiritual power. At this moment, two beams of light appeared in the depths. One was completely red, like a burning fireball. The other one was glowing with green light. It's that person. He's here. Cage and Quill and Masa were panicking. Never in their wildest dreams did they expect to meet Chun Zhao here. Fight it out with him. If they could, they would definitely leave this place without looking back. But there was nowhere else to run. Only by putting their lives on the line could they have a glimmer of hope. However, Chun Zhao quickly extinguished their hopes. In just 20 seconds, Cage and Quill and Masa's hearts were dug out. Chun Zhao's bad mood from the past 2 days was suddenly lifted. How dare you steal my things? He was tired of living. Chun Zhao put the truck and the 2 hearts away. When he went out, he found that Nania and Polwil had already escaped. Drive faster, Nan and Iyer urged. Even without Nan and Iyer's urging, Polwil had already accelerated to the maximum. But just then, there was a loud bang in front, kicking up a cloud of dust. Polwil hurriedly stepped on the brakes. Then the 2 people in the car saw Chun Zhao walk out of the dust. Get out, Chun Zhao ordered. Get out, Nan and Iyer said to Polwil. At the same time she got out of the car. Escape? It was impossible to run away from Chun Zhao. Chun Zhao just stood there and stared at Nan and Iyer without saying a word. Right now Nan and Iyer felt her scalp go numb under Chun Zhao's gaze. Suddenly, she regretted her earlier recklessness. She'd actually done this to take revenge on Cage, Quill and Masa and Rezhal. She'd actually attracted this terrifying human. She was practically asking for death. At this moment, Powell also felt his blood run cold. There was a gun hidden behind his back. Perhaps the gun could give him a sliver of security. It's you. No, it's not me. Nan and I waved her hands in fear. Hearing Nan and Iyer's voice, Chun Zhao immediately recognized that she was the one who'd provoked him. I've seen the surveillance footage of you robbing my gold. I also remember your voice, Chun Zhao said coldly. Chun Zhao said coldly. Also, you devoured my spoils of war without my permission. Nan and Iyer's face paled. She almost couldn't help but reveal her true form. But she knew very well that even if she revealed her true form, she wouldn't be able to defeat this human before her. That day, she'd personally witnessed how Chun Zhao had slaughtered her kind. Gold. The gold she'd robbed was his? Damn. Why wasn't his name carved on the gold? I can explain. Nan and Iyer was trembling all over. Okay. I'll give you one chance to explain. Chun Zhao also wanted to know the reason. He'd originally thought that a dangerous trap awaited him. But there was nothing. While Chun Zhao felt lucky, he was also a little disappointed. Just now, Chen Zhao hadn't attacked personally. He'd been using the black ball created by the little universe to attack. He just didn't know what kind of danger awaited him. He and I were both controlled by Elder Cage, Quillen Massa and Elder Rysel. We were forced to rob the bank, Nan and I said. I didn't know that the gold was yours at all. We were just enslaved by the three elders. But after we succeeded, the three elders wanted to kill us. One of the elders told us that they wanted to take revenge on you. On you for slaughtering us, our kind on Demon Island. But to prevent the news from leaking, they wanted to kill us small fries. Then how did you know my contact number? Before we took action, we had already secretly investigated your phone number. We had a premonition that the three elders might kill us, so we made preparations in advance. I didn't expect that our premonition would come true in the end. Chen Zhao rubbed his chin, thinking about the cause and effect. No, Chen Zhao suddenly shouted. I've seen your surveillance footage. You weren't going for the gold at all. Stealing my car carrying the gold was an accident. It wasn't an accident. We thought that the gold was in the bank, but the security door of the bank refused to let us in. So we planned to give up temporarily. But we happened to see the car carrying the gold at the door. So we took advantage of the situation and drove away. Divine King of the Nine Heavens. Chapter 2582. Okay, that's enough explanation. Chen Zhao waved his hand. He couldn't tell if Nanier was telling the truth or not. But some things didn't need to be too calculative. One explanation was enough. Then can I go now? Go. Did I say I'd let you go? You, otherworldly god. Chen Zhao looked at Nanier. Why do you think I'd let a otherworldly god go? You didn't keep your promise. Promise? You were the one who tried to use depravity magic on me that night, right? Chen Zhao looked at Nanier. I remember your spiritual aura. Don't deny it. Nanier's expression froze. She'd wanted to get some servants. But she'd run into a ghost when she left. And now, she'd come to him voluntarily. Nanier saw a black ball condense beside Chen Zhao. Nanier gulped. Powell suddenly pulled out his gun and pointed it at Chen Zhao, shouting, Don't move. Chen Zhao smiled. Recently, there weren't many people who threatened him with guns anymore. Wait, Nanier said, raising her hands. Sir, we can talk. Talk about what? Who are you to talk to me? I can help you find otherworldly gods. They're hiding in every corner of the human world. Even if you stand before some of them, you might not be able to find them. Chen Zhao shook his head. I don't care about that. As long as they don't appear before me, I won't care. Hearing this, Nanier felt that she'd asked for a big death again. I can work for you, Nanier said. Then what do you think you can do for me? Sir, you're raising otherworldly gods, right? So what? I know how to raise better otherworldly gods. You're a otherworldly god yourself. Don't you hate it? Why would I hate it? We raise our own kind too. It's very common for us to raise otherworldly gods. Chen Zhao propped up his chin with one hand and stared at Nanier. You know how to raise better otherworldly gods? Yes, I do. Is this technique unique to you? Or do all otherworldly gods know? Only I know. What's so special about you? Since Nanier had mastered a technique that no one else of her kind had. Then Chen Zhao had to suspect Nanier's identity. It's not that there's anything special about me. It's just that I've devoured Rysar, the first elder of the otherworld god you killed just now. I've extracted information about this technique from his memory fragments. Then how did he master this technology? I don't know about his ears. Nanier said helplessly. The memory I extracted from him is not complete. Then what are the specific effects of your rearing methods? I can make the unusual god mature faster, and I can nurture elite unusual gods, or even top unusual gods. Only in terms of power? Chen Zhao frowned. What he needed were otherworldly gods to be raised as livestock. It's not meant to be used in battle. Therefore, power strengthening was meaningless to Chen Zhao. The flesh of an elite unusual god can increase the user's spiritual power and vitality by a small amount. If eaten for a long time, the effect will be even more obvious. The three elders have used this method to rule fiend purgatory for a long time. Because they've secretly nurtured powerful unusual gods for themselves to devour. Their power is far greater than normal unusual gods. They've even evolved their own territories. Then if I let you manage Fiend Purgatory, how long will it take for you to give me results? 5 years, Nanir said. That's too long. 3 years. Nanir quickly added. The larvae in Devil Prison can also be used, but they can't achieve the best effect. Only the larvae that are cultivated from the moment they hatch are the best targets to be cultivated. Then, the quality of the larvae can be gradually improved, and the maturity period can be shortened from 50 years to 20 years. Qinzhao thought for a while. Sure, you have to give me results in 3 years. Sir, can I make my request? Tell me. I need at least 2 months of vacation every year, and I need payment. Vacation? Sure, what else do you need? First, I need at least 3 adult unusual gods as my food every year. At the same time, I need payment from humans and a high salary. How much do you think I'll pay you a year? $5 million. Qinzhao shook his head. You're not worth this price before you give me any results. Then 2 million, at least 2 million. Nanir thought for a moment and lowered her request. Qinzhao rubbed his chin in thought. Nanir added, I have 5 subordinates. I need to pay them. Sure, for 3 years, I'll give you 2 million a year. After 3 years, I'll raise your pay based on your results or kill you. When Nanir heard Qinzhao say the word kill, she had an unnatural expression. Pack up. I'll send you and your people back to Demon Island in 2 days. Qinzhao was about to leave when he suddenly remembered something. Oh, don't think about running. I've already left a mark on you. Nanir's smile was a bit stiff. Of course, I'm happy to work for you, my master. After I became your servant, I never thought about running. How could Qinzhao believe the words of an unusual god? Bang! Qinzhao flew away. Perwil was so scared that he fell on his butt. Only now did he feel a wave of fear. Is that guy Superman? Maybe he has superhuman strength, but his personality is completely different. In terms of evil, he's definitely scarier than us unusual gods. Qinzhao didn't know what Nanir thought of him, but he didn't care either. He cared more about his control of the realm. It seemed strong, but it didn't reach Qinzhao's expected level. In fact, it was far from what he'd expected. It seemed like he needed more time to cultivate. After returning home, Qinzhao entered the river map directly. He started cultivating again. To be honest, without the river map, Qinzhao couldn't have reached his current level. Qinzhao had never been a genius. Even though he'd had some opportunities, he was still far from a real genius. All Qinzhao had was time. Even if he used a small portion of it to cultivate, he could still reach his current level. Okay, please wait a moment. Half an hour later, Felwood Cisco arrived. Hello, Mr. Chen. Yes, sit. Qinzhao nodded. How's the construction of my private airport going? It's going well, Felwood Cisco said. It should be ready in the fall. Sure, Qinzhao said. Don't delay the construction. Also, I called you here for something else. Please go ahead. Do you remember that I told you last year that I have a big project on hand? Felwood Cisco perked up. Of course he remembered. For this, he'd hired many more workers. However, there was no news from Qinzhao. His company was already feeling a little pressured from paying the salaries of these workers. Recently, he was even planning to fire some of them. The project has been confirmed. The first investment should be $10 billion, Qinzhao said. I've already started raising funds, but there's no public bidding yet. I'm not the only one involved in this project. There are a few major shareholders too, so I need you to give me a clear answer. How much can you take? Felwood Cisco's jaw dropped. He stared at Qinzhao in shock. His eyes were filled with disbelief. $10 billion. This amount of money was enough to build a small city. What project was Qinzhao talking about? Mr. Chen, can you tell me the details of the project? Do you know about Nanchi Island? Qinzhao asked. Felwood Cisco's eyes widened again. Of course he knew. How could he not? There were already all sorts of rumors about Mystical Island in the market. One of them was that the owner of Mystical Island was going to develop it as a tourist island. As a member of the construction industry, Felwood Cisco had been asking around for information. He wanted to see if he could get some benefits. However, Basically everyone else knew about the information he got. He couldn't even find the person in charge. He couldn't even get some benefits. But he didn't expect that. Chen Zhao was the owner of Mystical Island. Moreover, he couldn't just get some benefits. A pot was placed before him. There were a few pieces of meat and a few mouthfuls of soup. It was all up to him. This is the plan for the first phase of the project. Take a look. Felwood Cisco felt like he was suffocating. There were dozens of big and small projects. The largest projects were all over $500 million. One of the biggest projects was the reclamation project and a medium-sized airport. The current budget was $3.5 billion. Moreover, this was only the first phase of the airport. The second phase would be expanded. At this moment, Felwood really wanted to slap himself. Why didn't he learn from his mistakes? Chen Zhao had already reminded him a year ago. However, he was still cautious. Now he was in a very awkward position. Mr. Chen, I think I can take on the shopping street and airport projects, Felwood said. Give me your schedule, budget and plan. Then contact my lawyer, the person in charge of the project. You can buy whatever you want for the next 3 days. In the future, you won't have the chance to enjoy yourself for most of the year. So I suggest you buy some things to pass the time on the island. Boss, who is that person? It's better if you don't know. But boss, we've already become his subordinates. What's there to hide? If you want to know who he is, you must first understand who I am. More accurately, what I am. Everyone swallowed their saliva, and their eyes were filled with panic. They already knew that Nanier wasn't human. However, after daily contact, they felt that Nanier was a bit difficult to please. But at least they were birds of a feather. So it wasn't unacceptable. I'm not human. Everyone responded to Nanier with a look that said, we already knew it. If we really have to count, I should be a god. God. Everyone was dumbfounded. This abominable fellow was a god? This was completely different from the gods in their minds. They really couldn't accept a god like this. Of course, in your understanding, I'm an evil god, Nanier said. Of course, I'm far from as powerful as you think. The 3 you saw that day are my kind. They're relatively powerful evil gods. They can use spiritual magic to cause people to fall into deep fear and make them sink into the illusions they create. Boss, then you're not good people. I don't need to make you fall. I like your desire. Your desire is my best food. But whether it's me or the 3 old guys, we're all meat raised by others. Not long ago, we were all enslaved by a terrible demon named Leviathan Abaron Tajimas. His strength is beyond your understanding. Then explain it in words we can understand. 4 months ago, a powerful American fleet attacked Leviathan Abhan Tegmis, but the battle only lasted for an hour. The entire fleet, together with thousands of American soldiers, sank into the sea. The flesh and blood of the soldiers were thrown down and became our food. Everyone swallowed, their eyes full of fear. Then that man came. Nanier's voice trembled with fear. He killed thousands of demons. Tajimas's island was almost razed to the ground by him. Tajimas begged for mercy in front of him, but he turned a blind eye to Tajimas's pleas and took everything away from him. We were deliberately released by Tajimas to stop him, but that horrible human crushed us like bugs. You can't imagine how horrible that human is. He's more like a demon than a demon. Everyone was trembling with fear. I escaped during the chaos. I thought I would never meet him again, but Nanier felt a little regretful at the moment. To be honest, I really admire you. Nanier glanced at Sadmar and the others. I thought you should be smart enough to understand the situation, but you actually dared to stare at that man. Everyone wanted to cry but had no tears. Their thoughts were completely opposite of Nanier's. They felt that Nanier had not warned them. Chapter 2587. At the airport, Yanghua didn't expect the person to be Chen Zhao. I thought you would stay. Akrabumon tugged at his man. Yanghua took a deep breath and looked at Chen Zhao. Are you here to mock me? You think I'm here to mock you? Isn't it? Chen Zhao looked at Yanghua. He didn't answer his question directly, but his lips curled into a smile. Yanghua sighed. After a while he said, let Vestana go. Yang knew that Vestana would not give up so easily. He also knew that Vestana couldn't defeat Chen Zhao. Even though he had reminded Vestana many times, she still couldn't help it. But Vestana still felt that she had a chance. She still had a chance to defeat him. This was because she didn't have a clear idea of Chen Zhao's strength. It was a terrifying thought. It's very simple. As long as she gives up those foolish thoughts, I won't touch a single hair on her head. Yang silently turned his head and left. If he could persuade Vestana, that is, then he wouldn't have to waste his breath on Chen Zhao. Just because he couldn't convince Vestana, that was why he wanted to get an acceptable answer from Chen Zhao. Unfortunately, Chen Zhao did not do as he wished. Mara and Sindora were going to school today. They were not unfamiliar with the school. When Chen Zhao brought Mara and Sindora to the newly built kindergarten, it was filled with parents and children. In fact, when the townspeople heard that Chen Zhao's 2 children were going to this kindergarten, they all wanted their children to go there too. The reason wasn't too complicated. It was just that Chen Zhao was rich. When Didi and the others were enrolled in the town's primary school, Chen Zhao had sponsored them quite a bit of money. He had improved the condition of the school and the teaching quality of the school. Of course, these parents hoped that their children would receive the same environment and education. Moreover, Chen Zhao was the bread and butter of half of the town's residents. Even from the perspective of worldly wisdom, they also hoped to get closer to Chen Zhao through the child. Some parents who were slightly familiar with Chen Zhao all greeted him. Many people looked familiar to Chen Zhao. Many of them opened various shops in the town. It was the only business in town. Therefore, Chen Zhao wasn't too unfamiliar with it. Chen Zhao maintained his smile. This was a typical social gathering. Chen Zhao didn't like this kind of social interaction. But in the end it was inevitable. Clive and Ampa were in charge of registering the children one by one. Of course, Sindora and Mara had already completed the registration. Including Mara and Sindora, there were a total of 20 children enrolled in the school. However, there were more than 50 children and parents who came for the interview. In fact, in Europe and the United States, high-end kindergartens all used an interview system. Chapter 2589. Money might not be able to solve all problems, but it could definitely solve most of them. Zhang Ting didn't have to worry about money at all now. Chen Zhao had also compensated her with all sorts of bonuses for her previous investments. It was even more than what she had invested in the past. As a result, her family thought that the Chinese cartoon studio she had invested in had finally paid off. Boss, if we start the holiday tomorrow, it'll be too long until January 15th. No company in the industry will give such a long holiday in 20 days. Although the market for Chinese cartoons wasn't very popular, they didn't have much time. Time was very tight for those who worked on cartoons. A skilled animation production team would have about 50 to 100 people, and it would take them about 10 days to produce a 20-minute episode of an animation. Moreover, it was hard to guarantee the duration. Sometimes more time was needed. Therefore, most cartoons in the world would only be broadcasted after at least one season had been produced. It wasn't like mini TV dramas, which could be filmed while it was being broadcasted. There were many scenes in cartoons. Perhaps the manuscript had the same feeling, but when it was made into a scene, it didn't have the feeling one imagined. This meant that the scene had to be remade. It could even be said that making cartoons was more complicated than filming movies. Boss, our animation team isn't full yet. If we start the holiday now, our production will be delayed longer, and we'll need to spend more money. Zhang Ting regretted it as soon as she said it. She had clearly forgotten about Chen Zhao's favorite thing to do, spending money. Then it's decided. Before Zhang Ting could stop him, he had already made his decision. Oh, everyone has to attend the party in 15 days. It's rare for me to come back, so I don't want anyone to be absent. Okay, boss, Zhang Ting replied helplessly. Zhang Ting hung up and went to her old classmate's office. Her old classmate was Li Yuka, who had become the general manager of the company through her introduction. Although Li Yuka was her boss in name, there was actually no difference between them. After all, Li Yuka had been introduced to the company by Zhang Ting. Zhang Ting, what's up? Li Yuka asked, pushing up his glasses. Old Li. We're the same age. If you dare to call me Old Li today, I'll call you Auntie Zhang tomorrow. Li Yuka, that's enough. Alright, what's up? I really don't know what's wrong with our boss. He seems to enjoy spending money. Now that the company has just been established, he doesn't think about the company's development plan. He only thinks about spending money. I even suspect that he's trying to launder money. I've seen the company's financial statements and accounts, as well as the accounts transferred to the company. They're all clean. There's no problem. Li Yuka smiled and said, And do you know how to launder money? Sure. Fei Lai answered without turning her head. Do you want to go yourself, or because of me? I want to go myself, but more importantly, it's because you want to go back. Papa, I want to go too. Little Jerlin suddenly ran to Chen Zhao's side and jumped into his arms. Aye. Little Larissa also ran over. Little Larissa was already very good at running, but she was only at the level of other children her age. She could not compare to Jerlin at all. Jerlin could already fly when she was 3 months old. Little Larissa was a far cry from little Jerlin in sports. Chen Zhao hesitated. He had only planned to go back with Fei Lai. Then he would leave the kid at home. Didira also walked over. Uncle, I want to go to China too. Why do you want to go? I want to see what China's most prosperous spiritual world is like. 9 Heavens Divine Emperor. Chapter 2590. DDRA, and the others were also psychics. They were imperceptibly influenced by many rumors and stories. It was all about the supernatural world of Wuxia. But that place was too far away. Even though they were spiritualists, it was hard for them to come into contact with it. Now they finally had the chance to let this powerful spiritualist from China lead the way. How could they give up this opportunity? Actually, Chen Zhao was quite curious too. The other children also showed strong curiosity. Alright, then let's go to Wuxia together this time. After thinking for a while, Chen Zhao finally decided to bring the whole family to China. They were all his family, so going to Wuxia could also be considered as returning home. There was no reason for them to follow him back. Now Chen Zhao's family celebrated Christmas and Spring Festival. In the past 2 days, Chen Zhao had been preparing for the Lunar New Year. All the fireworks and firecrackers were ready. Then, he went to his high school classmate Li Qiong's shop to buy it. It really wasn't easy to buy this thing outside. And because he bought quite a lot of them, we still need to do some registration. Chen Zhao and Li Qiong did not contact each other often. However, the connection was not completely severed. Li Qiong didn't know that Chen Zhao and her sister were enemies. Chen Zhao and Li Mu seemed to have a tacit understanding. They never mentioned this to Li Qiong. Chen Zhao knew that Li Qiong had been fishing for a rich husband. She seemed to be engaged to a Chinese man recently. Based on Li Qiong's experience, this Chinese fiancé probably had some family background. Otherwise, Li Qiong would not have agreed so easily. Chen Zhao didn't dislike this kind of purposeful feeling. Everyone has their own choices. Moreover, Chen Zhao wasn't a moral pace-setter. Portia could feel the change in Chen Zhao's mood these days. She knew that the most important festival for the Chinese, the Spring Festival, was in 2 days. Wasn't it just a festival? Was there a need to be so excited and expectant? The weather in Los Angeles had begun to warm up. The temperature had returned to the 20s during the day. The most obvious change was that the children could already play in the water in their swimsuits. Portia glanced at Chen Zhao, who was lying on the chair with his upper body bare. Chen Zhao hummed. He seemed to be in a good mood. Boss, do you want some fruit? Wash 2 grapes for me, Chen Zhao said. Boss, are you going to China after the Spring Festival? Yes. Then can you take me to Wuxia as well? You borrowed money from loan sharks here. Do you need to take refuge in China? Portia glared at Chen Zhao. He was her biggest creditor. She owed Chen Zhao so much that she couldn't even count it, and it was only getting more and more. It couldn't be helped. She couldn't control her desire to shop. Every time, he would suddenly wake up after shopping. But it was already too late.